nights. And the winner for the poetry contest is Donna Pucciani. Her poems have appeared on 4 continents. She did not say what kind of carbon footprint they have. And have been translated into Italian, Chinese, and Japanese. Tonight's winning poem, Non-Committal, appears on her collaborative website, shutterverse2.wordpress.com, with a photo taken by X Woods, who has translated the poem into German. Donna is a 5-time nominee for the Pushcart Prize and was vice president of the Poets Club of Chicago for over a decade. We invite you to purchase her 6th book, A Light Dusting of Breath, and have it signed by Donna tonight. Her website is donnapuccianipoet.wordpress.com. Welcome and congratulations, Donna.
Thank you. I hope I can live up to that dazzling introduction. Well, I'm going to read a handful of poems tonight from the new book, A Light Dusting of Breath, and I will include the winning poem, Non-Committal. But first, I'd like to start with a poem called Easter 2013, Scotland. And this is a poem that was written 2 years ago when we were visiting my husband's family in the north of Britain. And there was a lot of news coverage about what was happening in Scotland. They had had the worst winter in Scottish history. So this is a commentary on climate change, concentrating on that episode. Easter 2013, Scotland. Picture a farmer crying. He wears Wellington boots, a woolen cap and gloves, a coat against the wind. He holds a spade. His breath surrounds his face in an aura of whitish death. He has just uncovered another lamb. The newspaper reports 35-foot drifts in the highlands where newborn lambs have frozen in mounds, small corpses limp and scarcely distinguishable from the ever-falling white. Wind-blown dunes sift among the rills, the downs where ewes have birthed, then scattered, shivering into grottos. Where is the Lamb of God that haunts these hills at Easter, sacrificial but tidy in the prayer books? The Good Shepherd has left his flock, his staff and rod back at the Psalms. David, a shepherd boy turned giant killer and king, never knew such sorrow as that of the farmer who swallows tears as he shovels, who cradles in his arms the tender lumps of life, frozen hard as little statues carved in ice. The next poem I'm going to read is Scattering the Parents, and it was written after I had scattered my parents' ashes in the Mississippi River near New Orleans, where they had met many years before during World War II at the port of embarkation. My father was a lieutenant in charge of the Italian POWs there, and my mom was a supervisor for the printing office of the Army manuals. In Christian tradition, the prayer for Ash Wednesday goes, "Remember, man, that thou art dust, and into dust thou shalt return." And as I was writing this poem, I thought, after death is probably the closest that many of us will get to the earth from which we were made. Scattering the Parents. Mother's ashes take the wind on the levee in back of a plantation where she'd love to have played the lady of the manor, a nouveau scarlet, with her long hair trailing like moss through the live oaks. Her bones missed the air over the spiral staircase of her dreams. Father's dust mingles with hers on the Mississippi shoreline, cast from the high earthen border built to withstand wind and water, but in fact fallible. Dad, as in life, is hesitant, circumspect. The wind dies down at our backs, and clumps that were once his dark hair, full mouth, and tennis elbow hit the shoreline with a thud, drifting after mother's white magnolia gown, with water lapping what used to be their toes. In the same vein, this one is called Last Journey. Mother and Daddy bumped down the interstate in the trunk of a silver Toyota, speeding through Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Their ashes slept last night in a star-smitten Memphis after dinner at the Catfish Cabin 8 hours south of Chicago. They'd grown tired of the cellar in a suburban bungalow west of Lake Michigan, where their whispers had limped and listed in the silent damp, now summer-sodden, now spangled in an aura of snow. It was time to go, back where they came from, scattered on the levee or Lake Pontchartrain, where Brother Jimmy of the local church had offered to say a few words, which we'd have refused because the deceased never did find Jesus. But years ago, angels and devils were sent to round up Lieutenant Frank, giving kindly orders to Italian POWs, and Lucille at the Army printing office for a marriage, part miracle, part nightmare. Half a century later, in a daughter's basement, they found a restless piece from cancer and dementia atop a chest of old candles, gift wrap, and maps, watching laundry pass through the hands of the living, listening to their tired footsteps on the stairs. Now the road through burned-up cornfields leads from Illinois to Missouri, Arkansas down to the Crescent River, whose mouth awaits them, their bones turning the delta a paler shade of brown. The next poem I'm going to read is non-committal, and this is the poem which won the climate change contest. It attempts to recognize the deep interdependence which we have with each other and with our earth, which we seem intent on destroying. And yet the world keeps on turning no matter what. Non-committal. Tonight, Jupiter will rise to the upper right of the moon, and tomorrow, Venus will join them, low and luminous in the east. The earth below, that piteous planet of floods and wars, mudslides and fires, cracks from the drought in our small corner of Midwest America. Thirst travels from the bottom of each crevasse in the yellowing yards to the surface packed like cement. This is the story of heaven and earth, each consumed with its own domain, and of life in between, of 6 billion humans conceived in sweat and desire, the hydrangeas fanning themselves, the dying plucking at the bedclothes, the dancers at the bar with their blistered feet tied up in old satin, all in their parallel orbits. Try to remember this week, Venus will ascend from horizon into heaven. And this next poem also ends on an optimistic note. It's a poem called Conjecture, and it asks, what if? What if we could somehow reclaim our harmony with each other as human beings and with the environment of our earth? Conjecture. What if sun and moon were to collide in space, spawning sparks of gold and silver, little gods and goddesses falling to earth to make everything right? The rich would turn their pockets inside out, for an old man shivering in a basement flat. He needs warmth and bread, but wants only his wife back. He has saved her blue sweater from the hospital, keeps it under his pillow, smells it when he is too cold to sleep. What if the 8 women bombed yesterday while gathering wood could return, scarved and gossiping, arms full of twigs? What if their broken children could be sewn up like dolls, resurrected clean and desert pink, arms and legs where God put them, shrapnel vanishing like light to bless an invisible sky? What if truth popped like firecrackers from the eyes of politicians? If bankers ate of a golden fruit that made them un-Midas their vast, incredible coffers for hospitals? What if the poor had homes, shoes, books? What if the 4 seasons could follow a gentle sequence? Snow, blossom, leaf, and warmth, moderating all desire. Even if death remains inevitable, what if chrysanthemums of joy could fold us up from our sickbeds as we slept, suck out all breath before we knew what was happening, to leave the living gasping in surprise, not grief, holding a white flower to the heart? Thank you.